All right, what's up, those of us with split personalities? This is Steven and Phantology. I am live streaming right now, and also will be condensing this into a podcast format. This is something that Phantology is kind of doing in beta. I mean, YouTube, it's kind of silly to say that we're doing something in beta if it's on YouTube, but it's new to Phantology, so we're going to try to stream more often and attract a little bit more of a following in that way. And so these streams will be more of like a behind the scenes feel. And then if you like that, feel free to tune in there. But if you'd rather have it be cleaned up, then, I mean, I'm not going to be offended if you stop watching my face. You can just wait a week or so, or actually for these Rhythm of War chapters, I get them out the next day. So you can check those out on our podcast. If you like Phantology, check us out on social media at Phantology Books, or online at www.phantologybooks.com. We are out there everywhere. So this week we had what I've been waiting for a long time. We got our cover reveal, finally. I think there's like a German cover that came out not too long ago. There's a Bulgarian cover that dropped a little bit further back. And so we did have some art to tease us a little bit, but we finally got the big Michael. We got the Michael Whelan reveal of the cover. This is still kind of like it's not an initial draft, but it's not the final draft. His assistant has been answering some questions on the post on Tor, and he said it'll be higher res available that you can put on your desktops, etc. So as I look at the cover, a few things stand out. Obviously, we have Shallan featured on the front cover. At least, I don't know, it could be Shallan. Who knows what personality will be in charge by this point of the book. But Shallan is there holding a spear, looking very determined to explore Shadesmar and do whatever she's doing. She's surrounded by a bunch of spren that kind of appear to be like logic spren, maybe. These are like the geometric spren that seem like they're the things that were surrounding Yasna towards the end of Oathbringer, when it seemed like Yasna's plate was forming, or maybe her plate had formed and was going away. Like these are like the cousin spren for Elsecolors, maybe. That's what I'm speculating. Anyway, really like the colors here in Shadesmar. It seems a little more vibrant maybe than I had expected, but still has this kind of eerie, otherworldly feel. We also have Adolin, confirmed this is Adolin on the back cover. He has a sword in his possession. I and a lot of other people were thinking that he maybe had like Azure's sword, because there is this really colorful shadow that's on the rock behind him that seems like, okay, this is some kind of Warbreaker magic going on here. But Michael Whelan's assistant actually was just on Twitter answering some questions, and he said that this was in fact just a sword and the colors were just some artistic liberty. And he did say that it was Adolin. I'm interested to see why his hair is silver. Maybe that's just another artistic thing. I was thinking, okay, the color's been bleached out of him and he's got the sword, like it all adds up. But I guess that theory has been shot down and it's just a sword. His assistant, Michael Whelan's assistant, also said that it wasn't Dalinar on the front cover of Way of Kings. At the time, Michael Whelan wasn't into the series quite as much, and this was just someone who is supposed to represent a generic Shardbearer, so not Dalinar. I think a lot of people were thinking this is like Dalinar slating to Kaladin, or maybe a Shanai, but that's been shot down as well, unfortunately. That's kind of a fun theory. The other thing that I think we call to, or the other thing that looks impressive in this picture is this ominous, mysterious, large, rectangular building jutting out of the rock here in the background. And it looks a little bit like Azkaban, maybe, kind of my first impression. I'm not sure what this is. Maybe it's supposed to be like the lighthouse, but that's not a lighthouse. Looks like a prison to me, or some kind of ominous building. So I'm assuming we'll see what that is. And that's it for the cover. So this looks beautiful to me. Really happy with the way this is looking. I'm excited. I think a lot of people are saying this is their favorite cover. I think the Way of Kings cover is still my favorite, although this is second favorite. I really love the color the colors in this series, and you can see that here on this cover. So moving past the cover into chapter 7. So it starts off with another epigraph that is Navani's lectures on Fabrials, and immediately she actually drops some names of metals, and these are metals that we've seen in Mistborn. We have zinc and brass, and she is lecturing saying that these two metals are used to draw out spren and also reduce the effects of spren. And zinc and brass are, of course, the rioter and soother metals from Mistborn. So we have the exact same type of magic investiture being used here in Stormlight, in Roshar. So exciting. And I mean, we knew that there was going to be crossovers, right? Brandon does not disguise that, but it's really exciting to see this on page. And I'm hoping that we get some like actual action. I don't know. Are we going to see some Mistborn characters more on screen? We have had some world hoppers, like Demo has been over in Roshar, we know, but certainly not as strong from Mistborn as we've seen from Warbreaker, for example. So we'll see. But I know we're going to get it eventually. Speaking of Mistborn magic, on our Discord, we had a theory that this EMP Fabrial that's used later in the chapter was maybe powered by chromium, because it wipes out the reserves of power from our Knights Radiant. But I don't think that's quite it, because it's not wiping out their reserves. It's just damping their abilities, just suppressing their abilities momentarily. So it's got to be something else. I think it's interesting that it doesn't affect the fused. So the void light isn't suppressed, only the stormlight. So there's got to be something there. Sanderson seems to like this EMP type of magic system. This is now the third series in which he's had something like this. I mentioned the use of chromium in Mistborn, and also if you have read Skybreaker, the ships heavily feature these EMP blasts. So it's something that is definitely caught Brando's eye. Going into the actual action of chapter 7. So starts off, it actually starts off with Shallan and is mostly a Shallan chapter. So right away, there's some wordplay with Iale. I mispronounced her name in the last review that I did. I think I said Iale. I was trying to add too many L's, and I got corrected there on Discord. So I'm going to say it right now. Iale. Probably won't have to say her name too much more because she is dead. And she had some wordplay with Shallan, aka the 3. That's our new moniker for Shallan Veil / Radiant. And okay, I guess that's all right with me. I was going to try to like mash up their names and have some kind of fandom name, but maybe the 3 is simpler. I actually have a theory on this going forward. It's a theory that I kind of stole and added to that we were talking about on Discord. So I'll just kind of leave that there for now, talk about that in a second. So Iale seems to be more concerned about the Ghostbloods than the Colons, which is interesting because I didn't realize that the Ghostbloods would have been more of her direct enemy than the family Colin, but that's how she feels. And she actually she assumes that Shallan is there to kill her as a Ghostblood agent, and she says that she was not actually the one who killed some of the other High Princes, that it was the Ghostbloods. So I've been saying that I feel like these Sons of Honor are kind of weak sauce, and I'm hoping they power up and have more of a threat, more of a punch, that they're going to do something more in the series. I don't know that they are. If Iale is dead and the rest of them seem pretty pathetic, they might just be done. And maybe their main effect here was just to introduce the Ghostbloods as even more of an effect or even more of a threat. I guess I would be okay with that. But we do know they're going to do at least one more thing, which is we got to have more of an explanation with what Gavilar was doing. And Iale drops this riddle to Shallan after some banter and some wordplay involving wine metaphors. She tells Shallan that she needs to look for a specific type of wine that is going to probably lead her to another mystery that Gavilar was investigating towards the beginning of the book, dealing with different worlds. So Iale says, well, we're investigating different worlds. We know something more. And she wants Shallan to know this and keep this out of Ghostblood hands, I guess. We'll see. This is not quite. This still needs to be investigated more. And Shallan is going to be the one to do this, we think. Adolin finally shows up. We finally see him on camera. He seems to understand Shallan and the three pretty well, which is nice. It's nice to see that their husband-wife dynamic is working out, even with Shallan's serious mental issues going on here. Still seems to be a bit of a secret that he was the one who killed Sadeas, so Dalinar has not publicly announced this information everywhere. So good, he learned something from Ned Stark. That's nice. But I'm still kind of waiting for this to be important in some ways. This was one of my biggest criticisms and disappointments with Oathbringer, was the fact that Adolin's murder of Sadeas meant nothing, pretty much. And also that the revelation that Kaladin was the one that killed Helaron was also not as important for our characters. I thought both of those secrets could have packed more of a punch. But yet we still don't, it's not really public knowledge that Adolin killed Toril. So maybe that will be something. Now, Iale is dead, and we think initially that she died like a cyanide capsule type thing, and she went down with the ship. But as Shallan investigates more, she thinks that there was probably another traitor that killed her. So we have theories. This was what we were talking about on Discord the most. So we think it's either one of three people thus far. We're thinking it's either Gaz, and I just threw out Gaz because I still don't trust him, and I cannot forgive him for the way that he treated Kaladin. We think it could be Ishna from Oathbringer. She kind of arrived on the scene under mysterious circumstances, and there's a chance that maybe in the past year she has been bought off or something. And the most popular and kind of cool theory is that it is a fourth personality that Shallan has been suppressing. And there's actually a moment in this chapter where Shallan was kind of like thinking back, like trying to determine if they had killed Iale, and it says her brain kind of fuzzes, and she's like, well, I'm pretty sure it wasn't us. And Vale and Radiant are like, okay, so maybe it was them, and it's some kind of like evil fourth personality. And with Sanderson introducing this moniker of the three, that would be a nice misdirection towards the four. And the fourth is something more nefarious that is kind of corrupting Shallan. We'll see. I think we're going to be watching for evidence. So after Shallan's part, we go to Kaladin. Kaladin is still fighting the hulking fused, as we call him. No name for this class of fused yet. So the hulking fused, this was the red light, Elsecaller type fused that he fought earlier, that he didn't fight very well earlier. And the battle continues, and he accepts a challenge to enter into the manor to fight him. I guess it's a him. To fight it. And Leshwi, I guess, has abandoned him after they kind of like bowed to each other and said they were going to both go after the hulking fused. Maybe that was something that I read into too much, and it's really just Kaladin going after him, So he enters into the manor. This is significant because obviously Kaladin is kind of putting himself a bit of a disadvantage because he can't fly around as much. The Elsecaller fused, I guess this is an advantage for it, although it fought Kaladin pretty well in the skies anyway, so I'm not really sure how much of a tactical decision this is. We assume it is, and the reason why we assume it is because it kind of confirms this connection to else colors. Else colors have this nature of being more tactical and logical. And if we're saying that the heavenly ones kind of line up with the Windrunners, then having these type of hues line up with the else colors in nature when they already have similar powers makes sense and kind of supports a theory that I have going forward, that the fused have this connection with the Knights Radiant in terms of Voidlight and Stormlight, and also in terms of the way that they are structured. Doesn't quite line up all the way, because obviously there's only 9 orders of fused and there are 10 Knights Radiant. Well, not obviously only 9, but that's what we think, and it's kind of hinted at so strongly that it seems like that must be the case. We'll see. I'd like to see more orders of the fused. I'd like to see more orders of the fused brought into the story more, so we can test this out. Anyway, he overcomes the hulking fused. It fires off the EMP Fabrial type thing and has a nice build up to this fight where Kaladin's just going to kick some butt, where it's saying like, oh, now that you don't have your powers, yeah, I'm going to overcome you pretty easily, sets off its minions against it, and Kaladin falls back into his spearman form and kills them all. Well, actually not all of them, but disarms them all, kills a few. The red light fused transforms, or the red light shines over to Kaladin. It's about to reappear. He grabs a knife, stabs it into the point where it's about to reappear, and kills it right away as it appears onto the knife. So this was a nice fight in terms of, yes, it was set up well. Yes, we've seen Kaladin fight it before. There was some nice banter beforehand, which Kaladin, had a really nice moment of victory here. But at the same time, I was like a little disappointed because it seemed a little anticlimactic just how quickly it happened. And I wasn't super into the writing. Like, I mean, not to be critical, but I just didn't feel like it really drew me in all the way. I felt like I could have seen the movie scene happening really well, and this would have been a cool scene to visually see. But as I was reading it, I just kind of like flipped through the words and I was like, okay, that happened. So I was expecting maybe a little more like drawn out narrative text of how this went down, because it was a really cool scene, and I guess it just didn't quite do it for me. Minor criticism, but good setup. So then Lift comes on the scene. She helps get Godoke out. This is one of the else colors. I probably butchered that pronunciation, and there is actually, and if I wanted to, I probably could have figured out how to pronounce his name, because this is a character that is based off of a friend of Sanderson's that actually just passed away, a mega fan of the series. So maybe I'll just kind of wait and see how it's pronounced in the audiobook and try to avoid actually saying it aloud, because that's probably not the right pronunciation. But this is one of the other else colors that was dragged off, injured. But now that the EMP is taken down, we're able to restore him, so he's going to be okay. And then towards the end here, Kaladin has to go off to save Rashon, who, as we know from previous books, is really someone that Kaladin is very justified towards hating. This dude basically conspired to kill Tien because of a petty feud with Kaladin's father. And the weight of the third ideal really kind of weighs on Kaladin's mind, where he, I think, flashes through his mind, like, even those I hate, which is his third ideal, but he is compelled to go after him. And that's kind of how the chapter ends. I think this is interesting. I'm wondering if we will see more of the burden of the ideals now, more than just simply the idea that the ideals are like power-ups, and as you do more ideals, you get stronger and you can do your plate or your blade, etc. But there really is like more to the ideal. The fact that we're swearing these ideals, it's a covenant that the knights have to honor as well. And if they break them, as we saw, we saw this pretty heavily in Words of Radiance, where Kaladin was losing Syl because he was not living up to the ideal. But I think we're going to start to see this, especially now that we have all of these additional Knights Radiant. This is a pretty important idea, the fact that they're swearing these ideals. And obviously we know this is, what happened to the previous generation of Knights Radiant, and why the Spren are so reluctant to form the bond again. So as I talk about it more, I'm realizing, yeah, this is something that's already been explored, but I think we'll see it more on camera. So thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. If you tuned into the live stream, and I'm going to try to do these every week. Check out the cleaned up version. That'll be happening more. That'll be released tomorrow morning. If you like Phantology Books, check us out at Phantology Books, online at www.phantologybooks.com. We're getting way geared up for Rhythm of War, but we also have a lot more releases. So thanks for listening, and I will catch you guys all next time. And let me see if there are any comments now that I've done my podcast spiel. Right, definitely, Alex. We're definitely going to see more crossover. John says the palace steward with the extra rings in the prologue is a terraceman. Didn't pay attention to this. It's either extra rings. He's either maybe a terraceman, or he got a hold of some blood knives rings from. Okay, I'm not going to say spoilers from Wheel of Time, but I was just on with Black Tower, and we were talking pretty heavily about one character in blood knife rings, so that kind of tracks. Josh is sticking with his chromium theory. He's wrong, but that's fine. He can stick with that. RSVP. Okay, nice. I like the RSVP. Yeah, so either Alala kill herself or Iale. Yeah, I said it right again. Or Shallan is a fourth personing. Yeah, the blowgun theory. That's something that I saw in on the Tor comments. In smoke form? Are we confirmed on that? I'll have to look into the smoke form thing. Have we seen that? I can't remember. I mean, I know that's one of the forms. I know that was talked about. Not sure. That's a good one though. Bring that up on Discord. I want to discuss that form. Okay, looks like I misquoted. As long as it is right. Are we sure? I thought it was even those I hate. I'm gonna pull it up really quick. Okay, he says Kaladin. So okay. I need to bring Alex on for these. He was the one who got me on the Alale mispronunciation as well. So long as it is right is indeed what Kaladin thinks.